I would be so honored to be the originizer. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and take that on. I will I will invite every porn star I know. Yeah. And like, where should we have it? Where would be a good spot?
Well, since
That's
I
a
keep trying to get you to come to Atlanta, you can come to Atlanta. We don't have like the mandates
ooh.
and stuff like that. So,
Okay. Atlanta it is.
all right, welcome back to the channel today, everybody. My guest today is comedian and host of Compounds Media's The Wet Spot, and YouTuber Chrissie Mayr. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for joining. It's interesting because we almost did this last year, like when I was just a very baby and only had like 50 followers, right? Frank got a hold of me and I was like, I'd love to, but then it just never happened. I think right now we're in a position and there's a lot to talk about that we can really engage in. I'm glad we waited because it's going to be a much better discussion.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's a good time to be a YouTuber now or anybody on a screen. I mean, there's yeah, every day there's something to talk about.
So the first thing I like to always ask people that are not traditionally into politics is how did you get into politics, and have you always been more, conservative leaning, or where do you see yourself in terms of your political ideology?
I think like if I were to not at all be a comedian, I think I would be considered really in the middle, like where I think a lot of people are right now. There's a lot of people who feel like politically homeless, who feel like they don't really find themselves on the left or on the right. But I think because I am a comedian and the default setting for comics is to be very left leaning, almost like radically so. Uh, since I'm not that and I've sort of publicly moved away from that, I'm seen as this like extreme alt right, all the names, all the ists. Yeah, so I think I'm seen as more political, even though if you were to take me out of the context of the comedy industry, I would be kind of seen like, if you were to sit me down and ask me like where I stand on every issue, I would probably fall more like a classic liberal. I'm like,
Yep.
I did a show. But what I've noticed, which is funny, like when I started out in comedy, I was very much a feminist, very left leaning, registered Democrat, always, voted left, just never felt engaged in politics, never felt like it appealed to me. And then I started doing a show at the Stonewall Inn for 6 years and had the time of my life. Like, again, I've been the same person like this whole time. I think what makes me laugh is the same. Did that for 6 years, like put like blood, sweat, and tears into that show. Always was into like promoting my LGBT friends, was constantly searching for up and coming LGBT talent. I would have like killers come in from the cellar just to make it as best of a show as I could. Spent my own money on advertising, like bent over backwards with like the manager of the place was not a comedy fan, and I'd have to deal with like last minute cancellations and moving, and I would understand that because it wasn't a comedy venue. Like there, the Stonewall Inn, like
Yeah.
as you know, it's this epic legendary New York and national landmark. So I'd be like, okay, but after a while it would kind of grow tiresome. And I noticed it was in the period of like maybe like a year, like I left the show at the Stonewall, and that was a hard decision too, because that was such a big part of my identity. And I felt like it was such a good show. And I loved giving people comics and the crowd a good experience. But when I shifted to like then doing a show on Compound Media, again, like I'm the same person, I laugh at the same things. My show on Compound Media, it's called The Wet Spot. Like it's a sex dating relationship like panel advice show where I have porn stars and comedians on. Like the same person did, like that sounds like the same person would do both. But if you didn't know what Compound Media was, you'd be like, oh, this sounds like the same person. But because Compound Media has, I guess, I think unfairly, this reputation of being like this extreme, like right wing network. Anthony
Well, it's a
Cumia,
free speech network, right?
yeah, the Free Speech Network. And even after a while, they had to remove that part of the title. Like in the last couple of years, they were taking away the Free Speech Network because even the term free speech had begun to gain a negative connotation, which is fucking crazy. And I think the founder, Anthony Cumia, his politics were more right, and Gavin McInnes had a show on Compound Media, and people love to misunderstand Gavin and paint him with all the ists as well. He's actually a super funny guy. But Compound Media is really more of a comedy network. But again, like, I'm the same person when I was hosting a show at Stonewall, but when I got the show at Compound, everything changed. And like, from a comedy perspective, people were getting angry with me, like, acquaintances, not actual friends. Like, and I have
Mhm.
learned through this, like, yeah, I've lost friends, but looking back, like, they weren't friends, because a real friend would text you and be like, oh, hey, like, what's going on? Or maybe I see you as more, whatever they're thinking. Like, oh, are you more on the right now? Or what's going on with Compound Media? Or like,
Yeah.
oh, you were at January 6th. What's that about? So,
Yeah.
but none of these people reached out. But instead, what they did was, like, publicly or over Twitter, like, talk shit, tag me or not. And it's this thing where it's like, it's not about me, it's about them. It's like, how can all these like lefty liberal comics kind of like shit on me together? They can notice each other. And I always refer back to this, I think John Ronson was his name. He wrote this book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed. And like, the first time this sort of happened to me, my friend Corinne Fisher was like, you have to read this book. And I'm so glad I did, because it put it all into perspective, that anytime you're publicly shamed, it's really not about you. It's about like everybody else that kind of, like, let's say if it's me or whoever, like anyone who's in the hot seat, who's like being shit on it sort of publicly, within a scene, a small scene of comedy or music or comic books or whatever, or just sort of like nationally, like Chrissy Tiegen, whatever. A lot of times, like, when someone's in the spotlight of being shit on, like, oh great, it's everyone's chance to jump in so that they can kind of elevate themselves in a way that is kind of part of it. So once I realized, like, oh, this isn't about me, this is kind of about everybody else, and these people don't actually know me, they're not friends, but I was amazed at like how many people came out of the woodwork, like, oh, I used to do improv with Chrissy 10 years ago, she's really changed. Or like, oh, I was I make the joke, like, I was behind Chrissy in line at a bodega in 2009, boy is she different. It's these people who never truly knew you, and the
Yeah.
people that truly did know me know I'm the same person, I laugh at the same stuff, I love the same people, I never changed the way how I felt about like LGBT community. I just was like, oh, I
Yeah.
pitched a show, and these guys picked me up, and I'm being supported, my work is being supported here. I'm making more of an impact on with fans and gaining following here. So yeah, like, go where you're loved, right? That's what they always say. um
Yeah.
so I felt like, the ground underneath me kind of shifted as the left became more radical left, and what was considered like normal left is now the center or even the right. And
Yeah.
I've noticed too, like, if I was kind of, like, I was outspoken about voting for Trump, right? But yet folks who are outspoken about voting for Biden or even voting for Obama, like, you're not seen as political as if you're an outspoken Trump voter, which is kind of interesting. And you think, like, well, why
It
is
is.
that? Because,
Well,
like,
it's
look at where
because
the
the
default
left,
is. Yeah.
yeah, the left typically looks at it like, well, you might vote for somebody like Biden because it's the lesser of two evils, right? Whereas if you vote for Trump, that's just straight evil. And they don't realize that kind of voting for both of them might be evil. you
Yeah,
know?
they might both be
Um,
terrible options. Yeah, there, you could definitely make an argument that Trump was part of the establishment and didn't do all the things he said he was going to do, and like, wasn't this like hero that many people think he is. And you could also argue that he didn't start new wars, that he did a ton for the Black community, that he did a ton for the LGBT community. So yeah, at the end of the
yeah.
day, I feel like any establishment, like, kind of politician, is kind of full of shit. But Trump, like, put himself out there as not the establishment and really kind of representing the people, which this country hadn't had in a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am 100%. I always can say I'm a former conservative, moved libertarian. So I kind of went through the stages of conservative to classic liberal, constitutionalist to now minarchist, which means the government shouldn't even be there except for, you know, a military that's only to defend our borders type thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting though, when the Overton window shifts, that's what you're seeing right now. That's why there's so many people that are like you that are more center or center left that are like, politically homeless. They don't know where to go because they don't necessarily want, anarchy, like, a lot of libertarians do, and they don't necessarily want, classic conservatism. But the left has moved so far left that they can't stay over there either. So where do you go? And I guess we can kind of move that into what's going on with people like Brandy Love and everything like that, because you had her on your channel, last week after everything happened?
Yeah, it was like it was the Monday after all that happened during the weekend. And like I feel like I didn't fully answer your question about like how, because I was just thinking like
Yeah.
once there was like an assault on free speech, that's what politically activated me. That's where I like saw myself
Yeah.
in politics where I never had before. I was never like into history or government or like poli sci, but I just was like, oh shit, like if free speech is in danger, then none of us can do what we love to do and make a
Exactly.
living.
I was thinking when you were talking about that, I'm like, how can comedians be like on the left nowadays and be free speech advocates? Because they're advocating for their own demise, essentially.
And they don't see it that way because like the culture supports everything they're saying or parroting from the mainstream media. It's like they haven't, yeah, they were dealing with like our team, our side lost with Trump, but again, it was fully supported. The resistance, I mean, how many times a day were we hearing that? It was like cool and socially acceptable to disrespect the president on a daily basis. Then not my president, all of it. But yet, if you say that now, you're an extremist, you're a domestic terrorist. So
Yeah.
it's very frustrating that there's different rules for different people.
Yeah. And it's interesting to watch. And it's good. It's good to see more people like you coming out more, liberty minded and everything like that. Austin Peterson said at Freedom Fest last week, we need more comedians in the libertarian movement because comedy is a major weapon. And I mean, you have Dave Smith, who's huge in the libertarian community right now and making a lot of waves. And it's absolutely true. Comedy can be a great weapon against the left.
It's so true. And I always use this metaphor of like the Care Bear stare, just because like anybody born in like I think the 80s or 90s can visualize it. And it's like, right, you don't just need a bunch of Dave Smiths. It's like everybody has their different voice and their different color, and like, but we're all part of the same message and the
Yeah.
same fighting for the same thing. So like all of us together, it's like if I'm the pink Care Bear, maybe I like connect with certain people, and like you're the blue Care Bear and you connect with certain people. But it's like, and that's why when we bring it around to like Brandy Love, it's like, really, we're gonna nitpick this woman because of her profession? Is this really the biggest problem? Like, yes, you can totally argue that porn is a problem among folks. Of course, you don't want it to get into young people's hands. Of course, if someone has addiction tendencies, they can totally ruin their life over it, just like with any vice. But we don't,
Yeah.
you're not going to let somebody in to the Turning Point USA who like sells alcohol, or I don't know, like killed someone once, or like used to work at a Planned Parenthood, right? Like if you're going to really take,
Yeah.
okay, what are our conservative values, and based on their profession, who are we not going to let in? Then where does it end?
Yeah.
And I just feel like they unfairly targeted her because it was an easy, splashy public move, and they could be like, look at us, we fixed everything. And it's like, no, you haven't fixed anything. You just kind of
Yeah.
made yourselves look bad in a time when like you can be doing some inclusivity without doing it like how the left does it, which is really like
Yeah.
it's been overtaken by Marxism. It's not even really
Yeah.
inclusivity anymore because there's no diversity of thought on the left.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, and that was an interesting time because this is kind of the convention season, right? And you just had CPAC the week before. It was ironic. Like I was on Slightly Offensive on Friday,
Oh my
and
God, really?
then
I love Elijah.
yeah, so the right after it, we were talking to Caitlyn Jenner and how she was treated at CPAC, and then going into that weekend was the whole, Turning Point USA stuff where everything happened with Brandy. So it's really interesting because this is social conservatism versus American conservatism, and typically the word conservatism, they want social conservatives look at it as a religious issue. We should be conserving the values that are propagated by the Bible. Whereas normal, like usually American conservatives, think that we should be conserving the small government principles as laid out in the Constitution. So there's this fight about what the word conservative actually means. So with the Caitlyn Jenner and Brandy Love issues, it's like they want to kind of eradicate anything that is or could be sinful in terms of the Bible. They want to, they more or less want a theocracy instead of a democracy or a republic that we have. They want the Bible to be the ruling body. Yet they had Donald Trump, who was an adulterer, and the former first lady who did porn. So
right, was a like model. And I wonder if too conservatives were like, okay, is it easier to go after Brandy Love, who is a porn star, and who doesn't have as much like mainstream acceptance in a sense, because Brandy will talk all about like my first interview with her was all about how like, yeah, the left doesn't like her because she supports the patriarchy and she her job is to fulfill the male gaze, right? And then the right hates her because of the religious component. And I wonder if the conservatives that were like, right, getting up in arms about Brandy, it's like, well, look at Caitlyn Jenner, she has so much mainstream support. Like if you're going to go after her, like that's going to be a shitstorm that you're probably not going to win. But whereas like, well, it's probably easier to go after Brandy because she's like a sort of like a niche thing.
Well, they both got shitstormed. That was the big thing about Caitlyn Jenner. She's running for, governor of California.
But they didn't like kick her out of the event, right?
Right. She just got harassed and called a freak and stuff like that at the event. So it was again, and then there's religious purists kind of defending that type of behavior against her, and so it's really interesting. Let me see. I mean, so I have this meme though that says, in the Middle Ages, at the end of a pandemic, they always celebrated with an orgy.
Really?
So we just don't let them at the orgy. And why are you the person to organize this orgy, and when is it happening?
Well, you think I should organize the orgy?
Well, you're friends with all the porn stars and everybody else that would be involved in an orgy.
I would be so honored to be the orgy originizer. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and take that on. I will invite every porn star I know. Yeah. And like, where should we have it? Where would be a good spot?
Well, since I keep trying to get you to come to Atlanta, you can come to Atlanta. We don't have like the mandates and stuff like that. So
okay, Atlanta it is. We'll do it in like a dome or something. Are there like like a super dome or something like that?
Well, we have a Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so I'm sure that would work.
Okay. The last time I was in Atlanta, I was there was a Laughing Skull comedy festival that I was on. But that might have been 2013 or 2012. So this was a while ago.
Yeah, I know there's two of their comedy places around here, actually. One in Little Five Points and one over in Midtown now.
Okay, cool.
I know where that's at. But kind of going back, so and that's what my question was though. And as a libertarian, I think Turning Point USA can absolutely allow access to whoever they want, but should they? I'm like, and where is the line? If somebody like Brandy Love's not allowed in, is somebody like my friend Ariel Scarcella allowed in because she does OnlyFans? Like, where is the line? And where do these, like, are they gonna really take this as far as it needs to go? Because as I said on Slightly Offensive, the Libertarian Party would love to have all those votes. Just come on over. We accept everybody.
Right. It's like I do understand the point too. I understand that they are allowed to let in or not let in who they want. I think from like an organizational perspective, like, yeah, you don't want somebody to have to like buy a ticket, show up, buy flights, pay for a hotel only to get kicked out. Like that looks bad. Like that should be avoided at all costs. Like if you guys could get your shit together a little bit more and say up front, we don't allow porn stars, just have a list or whatever.
Yeah.
Check off boxes, make somebody fill out a form, or you have interns whose job it is to very closely screen and Google the names of every person who buys a ticket. That seems kind of lame to me, but they're entitled to do that. And it's exactly what you said. Like, where does it stop? And right. Could a lesser known OnlyFans girl sneak in? Totally. They wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Someone who's less high profile.
Yeah. Like, why didn't they look through the list of VIP holders and
Right.
see. I mean, it's a pretty standout name if you really know what you're talking about. But the other question is, I mean, if the people that were there don't watch porn, how do they know who she was?
Exactly. And so many people made that observation, like, oh, this group of people that hate porn, that never watch porn, they sure recognized her right away. And it sucks, and they're entitled to do what they want. But I just really hated how Brandy was painted. They made her sound like she was, set up her own booth and was handing out cards and was like walking around in a bikini and trying to like, you know, I don't know, like traumatized kids. I have no idea. She
Yeah,
wasn't doing any of that. She was like pretty conservatively dressed. Like she's cute. She's wearing like a t-shirt dress, and she just was like happy to be there because she like loves this country and wants to be a part of the cause. And yes, they're entitled to do that, but it just feels like a misstep in a way.
yeah. And on the flip side, like I said, so the Libertarian Party, I was up in Michigan, and they were having their LP conference when I was up there. And one of the guests said that he saw the most return on investment by placing ads on Pornhub, and suggested that the party do the same.
Wait, Florence for the Libertarian Party on Pornhub for real?
Oh, I don't know if he was, I don't know if he was actually buying ads for the Libertarian Party, but that's what he was suggesting.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to see like who comes over.
Like he was getting more clicks than anywhere else he was advertising for. So it was just a really interesting concept, and it was very much entertained by the party there, which is kind of how libertarians think. Like, whatever, just come on over, as long as you don't want the government interfering in what you're doing, just come on over.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it would be great, like ad copy for libertarians. Like don't want anyone to know you were here. Neither do we. Like
That's
clear
Yeah, I mean,
clear
that's
your
true.
search history or the Libertarian Party. Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
now, you had mentioned that you were at January 6th. How was that? What all did you get? What all did you see when you were there, I guess?
Well, that's I got there maybe like the night before. I had been to the Trump rallies in November and December, and I started going because I really had a good sense that the mainstream media was not covering it truthfully, that they were downplaying how many people were there, that they were downplaying the amount of support that the president had, downplaying the amount of frustrated people who were trying to speak their minds. And I also wanted to do man on the street interviews. I had just started my YouTube channel really like the Chrissie Mayr podcast like January of 2020. And so I was also just like figuring out like, okay, what do I want to do with my channel? Like, I think I want to do like more man on the street interviews. I was like really inspired watching people like Austin Fletcher. He has Flecka's Talks, and Elijah Schaefer as well. I just was like, oh man, this is like, it doesn't get any more real than talking to people on the street. So I wanted to do that. And so we were watching, some speakers like the night before, and then like the morning of January 6th, they're like, okay, like 8 a.m. everyone was gathering in like the ellipsis or like the president's circle, whatever it's called. And you listen to speakers and you like talk to people around you, and it's fun to see the costumes, and it's fun to see all kinds of people come out. And I was just like, I realized for the November and December events, I'm like, oh, there's no like toothless hillbillies here. Like the MAGA people, it could be anybody. It literally could be anybody. Most diverse group, ethnicity wise, nationality wise, like men, women, children, families, dogs. I took a lot of pictures with dogs, like in different costumes, like dogs with Trump shirts and stuff. And like I've said on other like podcasts, the people who were most excited to come up and talk to me were people who they themselves or their parents were from, like a Cuba or a Venezuela or like, Soviet Union or something, who were like, oh, we can see where this country is headed, and we're not having it. This is why we left these countries, to get away from like a socialist regime. So they were very concerned. And I started to realize like, oh wow, like my whole life I haven't had to fight for any of my rights, and I don't know how good I've had it. And I think that applies to a lot of us. We just like took our freedoms for granted, and how good it is to live here. And so I just really enjoyed talking to people. And so again, like the morning of, we'll listen to speakers. It was so cold outside. Trump was supposed to speak at 11. He didn't get up there until 12. And then by that point, the next marching point, the next place to be at was like Capitol 1 p.m. Like we're all marching to the Capitol building. And it's like normal. Like it's nothing he said. It's not like he was like charge. Every single time there's a rally like this, like you have planned points and set times,
Yeah.
so it doesn't get boring, so people can like move around. And so a lot of us started to leave like while Trump was still speaking, just because it was freezing cold. And like I know the girl that I was with, my friend Wrist Flex, she's like 90 pounds and she was like freezing to death. And I was like, okay, let's start walking. Let's get you a little sandwich. So we left there and we start, walking to the Capitol, and it's just amazing. Like I love the costumes. I love to see how people dress up. There's like so many people on the street selling Trump merch. Just people like having fun. There was a guy in a skeleton costume that said I voted, with a sign that said I voted for Biden 9 times. That's probably my favorite. Tons of Chinese people there, tons of Chinese ladies out spreading the word of the CCP. And like I had been seeing this over the months, and I was like, I was just slowly starting to put it together. I'm like, why are these, what does the CCP have to do? And I was just like over the months putting it together, but very outspoken about them. And so get to the Capitol. Again, there's just so many people. People think there was like 1.5 million people there. I would believe it. There was just just hordes of people everywhere you looked. And so me and Riss, like we walked up, we were like pretty far away. We were kind of by one of the fountains. I think we were on I don't know if we were on the south side or the north side of the building, but we were on whatever side was like not getting all this media coverage, where there was like all the pictures and the videos that like, all went viral. Like I got shit for saying this on the Megyn Kelly podcast, but like it was pretty chill from where I was. Just a lot of people hanging out, and then you see, okay, there's crowds and some smoke bombs go off or whatever, if it's mace or something that they do for just crowd control. And once we realized that those, like, they weren't gunshots, they were just trying to like control the crowds, maybe like, release some mace or
Yep.
something at people. And we're like, oh, all right. Again, we don't see any cops anywhere. Like there was no panic in the air, just a lot of people. Some people next to me were listening on the radio to like the whatever proceedings were going on inside the building, which I didn't like fully understand at the time, but looking back, it's like, oh, they were like, I think trying to they were doing something with like the election, right? And I don't know,
Yeah, they
not
were
like
voting
they were like voting on whether
to
like,
certify the election. Yeah,
to
so they were
like
voting to certify. Yeah,
yeah, should we look into it? Yeah.
yeah,
And I think I remember thinking like, oh God, like that's interesting timing. That's what they're doing right now. But again, like didn't fully understand it, but it's definitely this feeling of like strangers crouched around a radio, a lot of like just like strangers getting to know each other. And then me and Riss were like, oh, this is like, why not just like walk up closer to the building? Like everybody's doing it. There was no panic, there was no like anybody breaking it up. And again, there were like no fences to hop, nothing to like break through to get on. It was just like a wide open campus, like any other I guess like government monument or anything that you can go up right up to and visit. So we like walk right up to the building, and yeah, lots of people just standing all around. People have their "Don't Tread on Me" flags, people have their American flags, people have like whatever country they're from flags. It's just like very exciting. It was such a sight. And you see people like climbing up the scaffolding, because they have all this scaffolding because they're getting ready for the inauguration, and they just do this big flag drop over the side of the scaffolding. And I was taking some photos from like a makeshift like temporary construction office, like these like small trailers that are outside. And so I saw a couple people like climbing up to just like get better shots, like more like independent media. And I was like, oh, I bet I could do that. So I climbed up all by myself. I was like the only girl up there. And then like once I was up there, I was like, it was a better view. Maybe you're like 10 feet or so higher, and taking photos, taking videos again, like, and then you see other people trying to climb up, and one was this like very old lady. I'm like, oh, she's gonna fall. So I would like stop what I was doing and like sort of like pulled her up. And then after a while, I was like, okay, I got down. And then people went inside the little like makeshift construction office to like chart. Again, it's freezing cold out. And so people, you're like, is this open? Because my friend Riss like had gone inside, and you're like, oh, this is open. There's people in here. People are charging their phones, like getting warm. There was like hot cocoa. I was like, what? Like, this is the kind of like, when you go to one of these rallies, you kind of have to pack almost like you're camping or hiking or something, like food, and people, have all their supplies and stuff, like whatever you're going to need to probably be out all day long. So to find a place where you could charge your phone was like amazing. I mean, we weren't really getting very much reception at all to send out tweets. Cause I remember I sent one out when we were kind of like on our way to the building. And of course, this got misconstrued by the people back home who didn't know what the fuck was going on or didn't want to know. This comedy booker out in Brooklyn retweeted it with she said, like, I don't know what LA comics are doing, but in New York, ours are storming the Capitol. And again, this is a person I'd worked with once. And it's that same thing with like the so you've been publicly shamed. People are so happy to take credit or highlight your activities or the things you do to gain credit. Obviously, this was a grandstanding. This was like virtue signaling. It's like, everybody look how great I am. I'm pointing out like how horrible Chrissy is or whatever. Or like people are happy to purposely misunderstand you to elevate themselves. So that was obvious. That's what she was trying to do. And then as the days went on, you're like, oh, everybody's purposely misunderstanding what happened January 6th. Oh, wow. Oh, the mainstream media is purposely misunderstanding like why we were there. They're really just focusing on like the small bit of chaos. And so yeah, we're charging our phones, we're drinking hot chocolate, we're warming up. And the guy, there was one man who did work in construction who was around, who was saying like, oh yeah, like that's when we first heard like it's the inauguration was not going to be public, it was going to be like invite only to just a few people. And then that made us go, is that because nobody would show up if it was public, because people don't really support this guy? He wasn't really a fair match here. So I was like, that was interesting to learn. And then again, like, yeah, I was watching people, maybe they were climbing. The most like badass thing I saw was watching people climb up the side of the wall. But then they would just sort of stay on the other side of the wall, like just sort of like, like it looked like a cool picture. Like when you see that picture of the person like climbing up the wall, it's like a beige colored wall. That's kind of like where I was standing, like what I was seeing. For a split second, I was like, ooh, just because I don't know, because I was like an adventurous kid or like sporty. I always love like physical challenges. I was like watching people climb that and go like, oh, I bet I could climb that. Part of me really wanted to just to like see if I could do it, but then I didn't, because I was with my girlfriend and I didn't want to lose her. So I was
she's like 90 pounds, so you don't want to.
She's 90 pounds. She's gonna blow away. She's tired. She's hungry. She's small. So I had to I had to watch her. And it just was like really cool. It was like a lot of just fun people watching, and people like singing the national anthem, people saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I was not seeing anything crazy go on. Like, again, like, yeah, people had climbed the wall, but I didn't at the time like know that like people were like breaking in and like fucking shit up inside the building. I figured out that it's open, people can walk in. I just had no idea until we were leaving at like 4 or 5 o'clock. All these other images are coming in. I'm like, how would anyone even know like where to go inside the building? How would, you kind of have to like have an inside knowledge to even know where to like reach. So
they had the Lego sets.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Very suspect. And then as I would talk to my other friends who were kind of like independent journalist types, they would, share what they saw, like what side of the building they were on. And one guy was telling me like he was watching a crowd of people and somebody passed up a sledgehammer. And then when it got to the top, somebody was like, or the front, somebody like was like, what the fuck? And then handed it to a cop. Like the more people I talked to, the more they had lots of examples of Trump supporters trying to stop destruction and stop, destroying property or like anti-violence, and just trying to like de-escalate.
Well, the more and more that videos come out, like there was one that was like released this week where the guy walks up to Capitol Police and like, why are you guys letting this happen? And he's wearing a MAGA hat and everything. Like, why are you guys not stopping this? And it was like, exactly. And then you see the videos from inside where the guys that are now all like publicly known are like talking to police. They're like, okay, don't mess anything up type thing. You know, it was really like you start to see those videos and you're like, wait a second, how does this, like, there's just something that's not, there's a disconnect between what we're seeing
What we're hearing,
in
yeah.
independent videos and what you're seeing, you know, in the mainstream media.
Oh, absolutely. Like I've watched a couple of videos that like really deconstruct like what happened around Ashley Babbitt's murder. Like, I mean, there are some rabbit holes you can go down. Like there's theories that she wasn't even really murdered, that it was such a setup, and there's people who break down. Like if you want to get into that stuff, you can find like people proving how like, oh, they're signing at each other. It was all very choreographed. It's kind of fascinating stuff. And it's like at this point, like I wouldn't put it past our government to do that to us.
No. Well, especially because we're finding out more and more, and it's like these things that used to be conspiracy theories like that are being proven almost true. Like we're seeing almost daily, like the FBI has been involved in, like I think it's been proved that they were involved in that whole Capitol incident on January 6th.
Yeah,
And
that
then
they
they were also
infiltrated those
involved in the
groups. Yeah.
planning. Yeah, they were also involved in the planning, like of the kidnapping of the Michigan governor. I mean, they're involved in
What?
all. Oh,
Whoa.
you haven't seen that?
I
Yeah.
didn't
So
even hear of that. Oh my God.
that came out, I think, this week. So, well, there was a plot to kidnap the Michigan governor because of her COVID restrictions and stuff like that. And then it came out like this week that they find out that the FBI had agents inside that were involved.
Who kidnaps a grown person? That's just so strange.
Well, it was, yeah, it was again she's absolutely not liked very much up there. She's probably the
Well,
next governor to
yeah.
be recalled. And
Mhm.
they had, I mean, it's been your guys' governor, Michigan and California have all been like the worst COVID states with,
Oh, for
and
sure.
yet
Yeah.
you guys have the worst cases. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think they say that to justify their measures. It's like all the numbers are bullshit. It's like anybody can say anything.
Yeah. So you don't have any, you've never been contacted or anything because you
No,
left the Capitol?
I'm kind of annoyed because it's like I would give the FBI some comps to come to comedy shows. I would be like, hit me up, guys. Like I want to see you at a show, maybe a retweet or something. But oh, people have tried. I've seen so many people tag me and tag the FBI, like, oh, we gotta, it's like it's laughable at this point. And you're like,
Yeah.
damn, I have a lot of haters or a lot of jealous
There's a lot.
people. Yeah.
And it is probably a good thing you didn't go try to climb that wall, because then it would be, I mean, there would be a video of you online trying to climb the
Oh,
wall.
for
You
sure.
would
I
have
would
had to
have
get up
turned
there.
around. I would have waved. I would have fully gone for that photo op. Like I was,
It would have been
yeah. Oh
comedian
yeah.
Chrissie Mayr is the one climbing the building.
I would have been up there posing. I would have been like, yeah, it would have been great. I would have been like up there plugging my podcast. Yeah.
Well, and see, that's one of the things though, is like, because of the issues on January 6th, like Brandon Strzok has basically gone underground. He can't really say much publicly right now because he's under investigation. So
It's
it's just
fucking
really an
wild. I
interesting
was supposed to
theory.
interview him the day he got arrested. It was crazy. Ugh. I was supposed to do my podcast. Actually, he'd done it once. I was supposed to have him on again. It was wild. And then yeah, I mean, I subscribed to his like newsletter, his email
Yeah, me
newsletter,
too.
but it's really crazy. Like I'm glad that he has good like management or good like lawyers around him keeping him safe,
Yeah.
but it sucks that he's
Well,
had to
and that's,
be.
yeah. I mean, Mike Harlow was on about a month ago now. Like me and Mike are friends. So we'll walk away, get all their stuff brought back up on social media. No.
Wow. No, of course not. Nobody who's been banned or censored is gonna get their posts back or their handles back.
No, and walk away has basically been blanketly banned from everything, every
That's
platform.
horrible. And you know what? Because they were threatened by Walkaway. It represented
Oh
so
yeah.
many people.
Well, that's what, and that's what I was arguing even on Elijah's show, was that like there's Trump went from 14 to 28% in the LGBT vote, and yet the conservatives, the current, religious conservatives, are trying to push those voters out of the party again. It's just, and so it's like it's really interesting. After you lose an election, you're trying to push people away.
It's very misguided. So stupid.
So one last, I guess, topic is Chrissy Tiegen.
Yes, my girl
You
Chrissy.
you almost single-handedly kind of took her, like wiped her off social media. And you didn't get her canceled, but she canceled herself, right?
Well, I can't take all that credit, Sarah. Oh my God. I think I got very it was coincidence plus luck. Like I had just been using uh this app called Social Blade. Me and my boyfriend, we like to like anytime someone gets picked up for SNL or gets on Comedy Central, right? There's a period of time where the people at these networks take them aside and go, okay, we gotta go through your social media, we gotta go through your Twitter and like basically clean it up. And it's fun for me to like go through and look at like how many tweets somebody deleted before they got their big job or their big special or whatever. And what you also notice on Social Blade is like if people buy followers. And I would love, there was like this comic who was like shitting on me publicly, like, oh, you have like no following, you have like no fans, because he had more than me at the time. And I looked him up on Social Blade and I was like, oh, you buy 2,000 followers like every couple months, and then the bots die off and you buy more. So it was just it was a tool that I would use just to see like a little bit more analytics onto social media and like what people were really up to. And I think Chrissy Teigen was like always in the news, and I just always was like, she's somebody who doesn't come across authentic to me. And I would hear whisperings, people would say like, oh yeah, she was on Epstein Island, she's in the flight logs, da da da, her and John Legend. So I ran her name through the Social Blade, and one day found that she had deleted 28,000 tweets, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, she didn't have a Comedy Central special. She wasn't about to go work on SNL. Like, why would she have this many tweets deleted? And so I just pointed that out. And it was right when Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. And the tweet was like, a lot of celebrities have been busy since Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. Like, Chrissy Teigen, why did you delete 28,000 tweets? Never in a fucking 100 years would I expect her to ever respond. I'm an unverified nobody. She's the self-proclaimed mayor of Twitter. Like, how would she even have seen my tweet? Like, I'm told that when you're verified, like you could make it so you only seen other like verified tweets or something. So I was in the middle of like, I just finished recording a podcast, and then like my boyfriend Frank was like, she responded. I was like, what? And he was like, Chrissy Teigen responded to your tweet. I was like, what the fuck? And then her response was like, no, it was actually 60,000 tweets because of like fucking people like you. You think you're detectives or something. And it was just strange because I had hashtagged like pedogate and Q and like a lot of these other trending topics at the time. I just thought it was like a very interesting coincidence. I was like, somebody doesn't delete this many tweets who has nothing to hide. So I just thought I would point that out. So when I sent that out and when she responded, what I didn't realize was behind me was a huge wave of people who had who had saved her sketchy tweets over the years from like 2010 till now, just had all these screenshots ready, all the times she was like suspect, all that bullying stuff. And this was last summer. So it was a year ago. Yeah, I think it was like last summer. So and now it's like now she's finally getting in trouble for the bullying stuff. So how long did that take? How many chances has this woman been given? But it was a combination of like, I just happened to run her name through Social Blade. She just happened to have deleted a ton of tweets like that day or the day before or something. She went ahead and corrected me and made it look even worse by saying she'd actually deleted double the amount that I saw, because Social Blade sometimes does take another 24 hours to like fully, I guess when she may have had a bot or something like where she put in a bunch of keywords and said like just delete, because 60,000 tweets was like a third of her total tweets or something like that. Like that's a lot, third or a fourth.
Yeah.
That's like not comics, you delete like maybe 100 or two when you're getting like your feed brushed up. This was like significant. So it was a combination of all these things, plus everyone who'd been watching her, who was behind me, who just decided to be like, no, actually, you are fucking sketchy. These claims are warranted. Look at all the things you've said over the years, like about watching like little girls on toddlers and tiaras, like a lot, like stuff you don't joke, and for her to say, oh, it was a joke, it's like, you're not a comedian, Chrissy. Like, these
No.
aren't even premises. This is even you, like, not everything I tweet is a joke, but it was a stretch to believe that she was that these were just supposed to be jokes. And I think a lot of people, when they're unconscious and they go unchecked for so long, it's like they say what's really happening and then they go, oh, it's a joke. Like, there's always a nugget of truth in there.
That's why
um
you never tweet and drink at the same time. Friends don't
yeah,
let friends tweet and drink.
right. So, and yeah, this woman had just been giving a pass for years and years and years. So it was a combination of all the things, pointing out something true and very noticeable
Mhm.
and very suspect, her responding to me, and then everybody who'd been watching her over the years being like, actually, yeah, you are pretty sketchy. And the bullying stuff. um
Yeah.
and then she has a really good PR team, because then she quickly made it about her family, her wanting to protect her family. When we're like, girl, this has nothing to do with your family. Like, your family didn't delete all those tweets. Like, your little kids, it's like, it's totally irrelevant. You're just trying to get like sympathy mom points.
Yeah.
And then very conveniently, she had a miscarriage that she decided to make very public, because that certainly helps your public image. And that's what a lot of these folks do, is like, instead of refuting bad news and denying it, you just push it down in the search results by creating
Yep.
new news, which is what the miscarriage was. A case could be made that was not real. Like, you could go in and I had a friend who was like, oh, look, her tears are like totally airbrushed, you can tell. That's a whole nother rabbit hole that you can go down, but it would make sense. Like, if one could
Yeah,
fake a hate
absolutely.
crime, one could fake a miscarriage. How much money would it for celebrities, where like money and relationships are
Oh,
at your fingertips? You could rent out a nurse in a room in a wing of a hospital and stage a whole photo shoot. Like, of course you could do that.
and as long as you
So
don't get the police involved, like Jesse Smollett,
yeah,
nobody's gonna know. Nobody's really gonna investigate that, and it's just gonna be
nobody's gonna be like,
conspiracy
let's see your
theory.
chart. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all covered under HIPAA as well, so it's not like you can really verify that.
Yeah. But what it did do was like, oh, make the public sympathetic for her again. But what they could not do was, when it finally came out again and again, like all of these tweets bullying her, telling like
Yeah.
different people to kill themselves. It's like, yeah, you can't really. Are you gonna have
No.
another miscarriage, Chrissy? Is that you so so she finally got shit hit the fan there, and she got dropped from Target and a few other stores. So, and I just, you know, it's not that I was like, I have to cancel her. I just was like, this is very suspect. And like, this is more deleted tweets than I've seen anybody do. And like,
Mhm.
there has to be a reason for that. So it just was like
Yeah, and
really good
like you
timing.
said, it wasn't necessarily you that canceled her. It was everybody that had all what those tweets were actually about.
Yeah.
You just brought
I didn't
you
realize
just
there was
raised
like
a
a
flag.
team of people like kind of waiting. I really just like lit the match, you know?
Yeah.
It was wild though. It
Okay.
was like crazy. And of course her fans were after me for a while. But I don't know. I feel like something like this happens like every 6 months at this point. So you get
But
used to
that's
it.
good for you. I mean,
I
at
guess
this
so.
point, well, no, I mean, and maybe not for your mental health, but you know, no publicity is bad publicity, and especially when you're calling out pedos, people are always gonna want to come to your defense. So I mean, you start getting this stuff, you start, getting more people that know who you are.
And of course, it's like what you said, like I care very much. And it's like, don't like when it comes to kids, like that's something that kind of is close to my heart. So where's I gonna go with that? Right. But once you point that out, then people who want to discredit you go, oh, she's with Q, she's a QAnon person. I'm like, what does it even mean? But it's just something that like has culturally become a thing. Like if you want to discredit
Yeah.
somebody, just associate them with Q. So they've definitely
Yeah,
thrown
well,
that at me.
Q, call him a racist, call him transphobic, homophobic. I
Yeah.
mean, I get called a turf, so I completely understand how that works. It's like, oh, you're just a turf. I'm a transsexual. How am I a turf?
None of it makes
Just
sense. Yeah.
no, the left doesn't make sense half the time, but it happens when anytime you call anybody that's fairly famous out on their bad behavior, they have
Mm-hmm.
all these apologists that will just come out and defend and defend and defend, even when the facts are right there in their face.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they finally took her down. Like she's finally been kind of knocked down a couple pegs, which is wild. And but she's still, that still doesn't stop the press releases. She'll have a press release about how she misses misses being on top. It's kind of sad. But like, again, like, girl, you're set for life. You have all the money you can ever need. You know, how upset could you be if you're just jetting off to Italy for 2 weeks? You're like, oh God, I'm just inside my house. It's like, no, you were just on like a crazy expensive lavish vacation. I think you're doing fine.
You just missed the power that you once had, not what it
Totally.
actually meant.
The
Not that you were
influence.
actually doing anything that was, yeah.
Yeah, she misses being liked by so many people.
Yeah. Now you put a tweet out the other day, I think it was, and I don't even remember when it was. It was interesting because now you talk about your haters and how now your boobs account has more followers than your haters, right? Your boobs have almost as many followers as I have.
It's really gotten out of hand, and I don't know who this person is, and I just was like thinking about this the other day. I'm like, I was taking my guesses at who I thought it might be. Like, I thought it might be this one friend of mine, but I'm like, I think if I knew, I think that would ruin it. I think it would ruin the I don't know, the mystery of it. Like, yeah, they've probably got like they definitely have over 1,000 followers at this point. Oh, my reception here is so
It's
terrible.
over 2,000.
Jeez. Yeah, 2,100. Yeah, and look, they've made this their background image photo. Is my tweet where I go, my boobs Twitter account has more followers than most SJW comedians. So proud of those two at Chrissie Mayr's boobs.
That's right. That's where I saw it then. Yeah.
And it's like this. It's like I agree with my boobs on most things. Like they're pretty smart. They're like, I'm kind of aligned with them. Like, thank God me and my boobs are on the same page. Pretty much, you know.
When did that account come out, and like when did you first find out about that account?
Oh, God. Yeah, let's see. Well, I can look on their thing. Joined May of 2020.
Okay.
So yeah, and I think at first they would just tweet about like I don't know, that I wouldn't wear enough like low cut tops because it's like it's tricky. I like and this is obviously it's flattering, right? It's like a compliment that people are like, oh, please, why don't you have an OnlyFans, please, please, please? But it's like, I know if I did that, I don't know, it would be number one, it would be another job. Like anyone who has a decent, if you're gonna do OnlyFans, you got to do it decently. You got to buy more clothes. Yep. You have to spend so much more time. Like this interview, like my hair is dirty as fuck right now. Like I am just like dry shampooing this into, and I'm trying to not like move around too much. So you can't see how greasy it is. It's like I could be bloated and still, you know what I mean? But when you're doing an OnlyFans, it's like you got to be juicing. You got to have clothes nobody's seen before. You got to have your lingerie on point. The makeup has to be on point. It's another job. And I know that would take away from like kind of my path and I think my purpose in life. Like, yeah, everyone likes to have sexy pictures of themselves, but like it would take up so much time. And then also it's like for certain people, it would never be enough. It'd be like, oh, well, where are your nudes? Where's your butthole? So then there's like the people that are kind of like never satisfied. And then there's the part of me that worries like, like, would I lose respect from certain folks, you know, in like, I don't know, who knows, maybe the conservative world, or I guess that matters the least. I think it's more like the time commitment and like how much it would sort of take me off of my path. So I understand that. So this boobs account kind of formed like, this is in their profile. We demand Chrissy release us from our garment prison. In the meantime, we will keep the Twitterverse abreast of our oppression. So they like usually the tweets would be like, oh, let us out or something, and just like funny quips. But yeah, now it's like they're a little politically involved.
Whoever's running it, yeah, definitely has some comedic background because they are pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And I appreciate whoever it is hasn't like let it slip and told me yet, because it's like they're not doing a bad job. Like, you know, I could see them wanting to like get the praise and like out themselves. It is I, you know. But what if it's somebody I don't really particularly like? Then it's like, then you're like, then I'd feel creeped out.
Well, what if it was like, who is it? Barry, that's on the West Spot all the time. What if it was
Terry Ribs? Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Barry.
But
Like, it's not written in his voice. Like, he's not really great with like grammar on Twitter.
no, I don't even know if I follow him on Twitter. I just know he comes on the wet spot and causes a whole bunch of controversy, which he's
He
funny, so
does.
I don't really care.
Not that I'm treating him as a make-a-wish. I mean, he is old and could die any moment. That's why I feel like it's pretty important. Like every time he's on, like if he can touch a porn star's boobs, great. I mean, like that's certainly going to be a memory. And it's funny. Like I joke with him, like he really was for a year was obsessed talking about Jenna Hayes. Jenna Hayes. I finally got her on the show with him. Like I scheduled that on purpose, and it was kind of like, there you go, oh Barry, and like it
Mhm.
was a surprise. She came in. I thought he was good. He did lose his shit, but then like literally the next day he was like, oh, I really like this girl. I'm like, oh, you're just on to the next one. You know, it's like it didn't take me months of planning to make this happen. So I kind of gave him some shit for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think because of you, I have the year subscription to Compound Media. So
Wow.
yeah, it was so good to have you on. Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me, Sarah. This was
Of
fun.
course. I know anytime you want to come on. So yeah, where can people go and find you? Because I know you're, like you said, you're super busy right now. So what do you got going on?
Got some shows coming up. I don't know when this is coming out, but August 12th, I'll be doing a show in Beach Haven, New Jersey at the spot called Bird and Betty's. And then I'm going to New Orleans to perform at the Comedy House down there. That's August 13th and 14th. And then I'll be in Vegas with Comedians of the Compound September 10th and 11th. Back to Texas, headlining Hyenas in Dallas September 17th and 18th. And I know Comedians of the Compound has a stadium show in Lakewood, New Jersey, October 16th. And then I'll be in Santa Monica, California at the Broadway Comedy Club West, October 22nd and 23rd. So I'll be planning kind of like a little LA trip, I guess. I'll see what's left of it. And for tickets, go to ChrissieMayr.com. Follow the Chrissy Mayr podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, all that good stuff. I also do some uncensored episodes for Rockfin where we talk about the stuff that gets you kicked off YouTube, which is fun. And then, of course, Wet Spot on Compound Media Mondays at 7:30 Eastern.
Awesome. Yeah. And I noticed that you didn't have Atlanta on your list yet. I'm
Oh
gonna keep harassing
no, I
until you
have
do.
to. I have to get over there. What clubs do you
I think
like? What do you, is it Laughing Skull? Is that pretty much the only option over there?
that's where a lot of the comedians are. We the Fox is still open, I think.
Okay.
The Coca-Cola Roxy at the Battery is perfect because it's just right down the street from my house. So just try to get
Okay.
there.
All right. I'll try to make that happen.
I know. I think the first time you released dates, I was like, well, where's Atlanta? You're like,
Oh,
uh.
I need to go over there. I have a couple friends in Georgia. I should probably try to make that happen. And now
All
you're
right, it was
one.
good. Yes, you got me here too. So when you do come, just let me know and we'll hang out. It'll be
I
good.
definitely will. We'll do get nails or
Um,
something. Oh, I was so annoyed. I got this gel and it's like not as sparkly. Like I think I should have made her do another coat. It's just like not loud enough. Like sometimes I really like a loud nail polish,
like
but
yeah, like
yeah. Yes. See, one of the best manicures I ever got was in the Bronx, and I got this like blinged out Easter manicure. It was like tons of like little encrusted crystals and stuff. They were very obnoxious, but it was like one of my all-time favorites. Oh, and it smelled so bad. Like it's one of these places where there's no ventilation, so it's like it feels like you're gonna pass out. It's just chemical
yeah.
assault. Yeah. Good
I
times.
go and the person that does mine, I mean, I have pictures all over. I always take pictures when I get my nails done because I go in there with a little bit of what I kind of want, and then she just kind of goes and does whatever she wants. Like she did Gucci nails for me one time when I didn't ask for her
Ooh,
to. Like she does some hand paint and stuff. My Christmas nails were like blue and silver and they were just gorgeous. And I'm like,
fun.
okay, cool. I just don't really, I just, and she doesn't really upcharge me either. So that's great too. I'm like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's great. So she can like have fun and like
Yeah,
get
she's got
creative.
creative freedom over my nails.
I like it. That's good. I don't have like one specific lady. I just like maybe that's what I need in my life. I don't know.
You do. I mean, she gave me a Christmas gift last year, which was amazing. I'm like, are you like my nail
Um,
person gave me a Christmas gift? I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
yeah. Oh, that's really sweet. Okay, I'm gonna work on that. I gotta settle down with a nail lady.
So yes, when you come here, we'll go get nails done at my
Yay.
spot, and then
Okay, that sounds good.
and I'll put your links in the description. And as well for everybody else, make sure you click and subscribe to this channel as always, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.